everyone, welcome to Tech Talks. Today we have 4 INFP Pauls. Let's give a little dance.
No, I refuse. I will not dance for you. Not right.
And so,
No.
Paul, are you wearing your fancy socks today like you said you were going to?
Oh, I didn't say they were fancy. I didn't know this was like, a black tie affair. Yeah, I never said fancy. I said lucky cat socks. Now if that's fancy in your world, then hey, power to you. But yes, I am actually. So let's see if we can get this on camera here.
Ooh!
I was waiting for this day to come.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's
I'm
okay
wearing
that
my
I've
very
done it on camera, right? Yeah, hang on. And just so you know, like I'm not half-assing it. This is the other foot.
Wow, that's really good.
Yeah.
Your SI will not allow you to mismatch socks.
Yeah.
Oh no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
That
I'm
came up
wearing
in
a
a
special
question, I
thong, but I
think.
can't really display that.
Oh, okay. Is it a lucky thong though? That's the question.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm scarred for life now. And so, Paul, would you like to tell me a bit about you?
I'm so sorry.
That's totally the last time that happens. Hi, everyone. I'm Paul Matson. I am one of 4 Pauls, who's also an INFP. I'm also an Enneagram 9-wing 1. I believe my subtype is sexual, but I'm still looking into that because I don't really understand the subtypes thoroughly. It's a work in progress. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I'm in Vancouver, BC, Canada. Yeah.
That's cool. I'm in Canada as well.
Yeah, you are.
And so, Paul, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
I'm Paul. I'm an INFP, and that's all you need to know. No, actually, I work as a personal trainer and life coach online and in the Toronto area. And fun fact, I giggled when Paul said the word sexual. If you need more than that, I can't help you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, excellent. That's great.
Is it though?
We're gonna get into the philosophical implications to know if that's great or not.
You absolutely should. That's the whole point of getting a bunch of INFPs in a room. So to just needlessly discuss philosophical implications of the most mundane things.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And Paul?
Oh, okay. Wait, do I need to say, right?
It's just chaos at this point. You can say whatever you want.
Okay. Hi, my name is Paul P. I'm an INFP 9 subtype. It's written like peace. So yeah, yeah.
All the INF Paul. This is great. Where's the other Paul?
Guys, now I can hear.
Oh my God.
I'm gonna talk from the shadows
Are you
because
okay?
now that I don't have camera, I can hear you very well.
Oh,
So I'm gonna be a ghost today.
Oh, where is
For
Paul?
sure. We're just gonna wait until
That's
the other
okay.
Paul comes back until we start
Yeah.
off again.
your
So you guys
avatar is
get-
quite
Oh
compelling.
my god!
Yeah, it's pretty much
not
you,
the
but
only
it's
one.
you in picture.
Next time. This actually should work. It's only because it hates me. That's why. No big deal. I'm sorry, Joyce. Your IJ brain is gonna explode.
Yeah, it's already has 10,000 times.
Oh, cool. Then you get it. That's what NE's like.
There's just blood pouring out my ear at this point.
Yeah. Well, Joyce, you managed to panel with ENTPs. I think this will be nothing. This is a cakewalk.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And
I'm so sorry. My connection does seem a lot better, so I'm not gonna go in and out. I'm sorry about that.
for sure. Awesome. And so, Paul, would you like to tell us a bit about you?
Hey, I can hear very well. It's me, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, she said Paul.
Okay, I'm Paul number 4. I'm a INFP, Enneagram 9, I guess. Wing 1, I think. and that's everything. Hello.
Yeah, and he has a YouTube
No
channel
way.
called PressieAMVs. I'm subscribed. Yeah, and Paul Bruce is a life coach, and I'll have his information linked down below as well, so you can check him out. And I'll have everyone's Twitter down below as well. If you want to check them out, they have plenty of puns and philosophical life advice. So if you like those two, then go check them.
Chances are slim that you like them, but if you fall into that category, that's great.
Excellent. And so, how many of you Pauls are into superheroes? Yeah. Paul number 4 would raise his hand too, but he's currently dealing with technical
You can't see me. But I am.
What's the vocal equivalent of raising your hand? How about shouting like a monkey?
Yeah, just start screaming.
Let's make a code here.
Oh my gosh.
Whenever I want to raise my hand, I will say potato, if that's okay.
It sounds like
That's perfect.
It's gonna be our code.
a safe word, Paul.
Yeah, I think we'll have a safe word.
Oh my god.
Starts with P.
Like what would,
It's related.
oh my god. What would be that connection with the INFP and the superhero nerdum?
It's interesting. I
I don't
wonder
know.
if it's just the age and you guys were into the same things, but it's kind of a coincidence because my INFP friend that I used to go to the bar with, the last question he asked me is like, what superhero power would you have? That brings us into our first topic, your niche hobbies. We mentioned superheroes is like 3 of yours. What else do you guys like that's a little on the outskirts?
Yeah, Paul, you go first.
Okay, what do I like that's on the outskirts? I don't know. Does typology count as being outskirts? It's hard to tell, depending on the context, because like online, it doesn't seem very fringe at all. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I'm not as into it as I was when I was younger, but I was really into entomology, like even as like a small child, for example.
Like bugs?
Yeah.
Wow.
Although, as an entomologist, I would correct you and say, I believe you mean true
Insects.
bugs, order Hemiptera. Yes, but yes, bugs as a catch-all for anything with 6 or more legs. Absolutely. So that's my one-wing pedantic streak there.
Yeah.
So and it definitely set me apart as, even as a kid, for a fair bit. But so it's a little more muted. I found other interests. Oh, here we go.
This is going to be a running theme in the panel, just the internet connectivity. Well,
those of you watching at home, feel free to start a drinking game around how many times that happens.
So, Paul,
Okay.
what type of insects did you like? All of them? Did you specialize in a niche?
Yeah, I wouldn't say specialized, but, and this is a very popular answer for people who are into insects, but the praying mantis is definitely, was always my favorite insect from the get-go. And I think even they're kind of like, you know how people like when they like animals, they're usually into things like, tigers or elephants, or whales, say, and like the term is like charismatic megafauna, because they're typically like large animals and they tend to have like a certain like stature about them. And apparently, even if you're into insects, that's true of the praying mantises, because relatively speaking, they tend to be on the larger side relative to other insects. And of course, they're apex predators because they'll eat anything that's, smaller than them or even larger on occasion. So, and I'd say that, and that's the weird thing, because insects, the word mantis actually is Latin for prophet, because people used to think that mantises had like fortune-telling abilities. Like they could determine the sex of an unborn child. If you were lost in the woods, if you found a mantis, you would ask it which way was home, and it would point with one of its forelegs. That was the belief. And in terms of their mannerisms, they tend to be the most kind of human in a way. They're the only insect that can turn their heads to look over their shoulders, and just the way they groom themselves. So it's a more cat-like behavior, I guess. But yeah, it tends to, the people who are at least into some insects tend to find them, even if they're a little creepy, certainly interesting. So anyway, that was a long rambling story about why I like praying mantises.
It wasn't too.
Yeah, I know. It's awful.
No, that is so cool. There's so many things I never thought I'd ever have to hear or want to hear about. Insects? True bugs? I zoned out.
Yep.
No, that was actually really cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Don't praying mantis, like the females, eat their males?
Some species more than others. Yeah, so there's a bit of a misconception. It won't happen all the time. And a lot of it's true in like the insect world or even the arachnid world, is females tend to be on the larger side. So, and if of course you're a predatory insect, then it kind of makes mating a little risky in the first place. Hormones are running wild, it's crazy. So it does happen, relatively, but it's not a guarantee by any means.
That is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyone else want to share their cool hobby?
Kind of gives the word man-eater a different meaning, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
Lol.
Whenever you have to say lol, you don't mean it. It just hurts. If you were to laugh out loud, you would laugh out loud. But when you say lol, it's not genuine.
Mocking laughter.
Yeah. LOL. Haha. That was funny. Paul, please stop laughing. Show some respect, all right? No, I'm kidding.
I find your response humorous.
Prexor, are you still there?
Is he there? Raise your hand.
Say potato.
Lord, this is a disaster. This is so funny.
Oh, man.
Like, in a good way.
Who wants to hear more about insects?
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's back.
Well, is he back?
I'm back.
Oh,
Wait,
thank
raise
God.
your hand.
Okay, I
Yes.
had nothing.
Potato.
Oh, thank God.
This is ridiculous.
Okay, what are we talking about right now?
It was bugs and then potatoes. Really shortly after.
Oh,
Yeah. Now we'll talk about potato bugs.
Oh,
like
good
I
one.
have a
Great.
Segue.
potato.
Because that totally caters to the audience of Type Talks. This is talking about potato bugs, right?
Yeah. Very on brand.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course. You see how the
I
comments.
apologize in
Why are they talking
advance,
about insects,
everyone.
right? Why are they talking about insects and root vegetables? You see that all the time in the comments in the chat section. So
Yeah.
well, you're welcome.
If you don't know about the insects and the root vegetables, you're obviously like kind of on a limited understanding. You're probably just off 16 personalities, and
So you're probably an INFJ, right?
yeah, sure, INFJ. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever that means.
Okay. Well,
All
I would
right.
love to hear about INF pathetics.
Oh, I like that. My niche obsession has always been superheroes. At concept, I don't even know why I just pause and think about that when my phone is propped up against a computer and the background is Batman. So it should have been pretty easy. That's actually why I knew of Prexor's channel before he was on the panel. Because I just have this obsession. There's something about I think it just satisfies that FI in so many ways. On one hand, there is the moral code that the hero typically carries, that they use to navigate their life, and something just always resonated with that journey, with that discovery, to become a better person, to become heroic, to build virtue. At the same time, there's like this satisfaction of that need for individuality. When you have multiple characters together, it's like the X-Men, the Avengers, the Justice League. You have these teams together. Each of the members is unique. Each of the members is different. They bring unique skills, unique abilities. They bring something unique to the group. Joyce, why are you laughing?
Because I'm imagining Paul 4 saying potato, potato.
We're never gonna outlive that. So I'm gonna say superheroes. And okay, Paul, you on next.
Oh, okay. I really like mushroom gathering, like in the forest. It's really like neat. You look around and yeah.
Mushroom
Yeah.
gathering.
That's amazing.
That's
Do
really
you
cool.
like that too?
Yeah, that's a great interest to have, I think, because
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you which mushrooms were safe or not. So,
Now the whole
You just-
conversation about bugs doesn't seem so out of place, does it?
yeah, no,
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
I can tell you which one insects are safe to eat, but yeah.
The ones without venomous claws.
we need the Pauls for survival, or else I might accidentally go into a forest and eat a death cat by mistake. It's like a regular mushroom. Yeah, that's really cool, and it's really cool. The superhero thing too. There's an idealistic component to liking superheroes too, I guess, as well, because it's like a fantasy world. Like you don't have to exist just within the realms and limitations of the world, but you can have like this other world that is maybe more perfect.
Yeah, it's a world of ideals, and it's a world of possibilities. Possibilities of who we could be, of who we could potentially become, or especially some of the characters that are more realistic, right? I mean, like people always make fun of Batman because he doesn't have a superpower; he just got money. But in some way, it's a bit more. It's also more attainable. And seeing a character like that, Green Arrow, hell, even Hawkeye from the Avengers, no one's favorite Avenger. There's still a realism to it, where like that aspiration can reach a little closer. But by the way, I think it just gives you a sense of the potential of the person, both in terms of skills and abilities, and also in terms of virtues. Right? Because these heroes represent a potential self you could become.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. They're like role models of virtue.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, people ask, Paul, who's your role model? Batman. Please, next question. And I mean, it's kind of a joke, but it's also very true. And looking to I guess real people, like Batman's not real. Yeah, cool. There's the realism of the individual, the role model that you have. Frankly, it's easy to see their flaws. It's easy to see their imperfections, their limitations, and that's natural. That is being a person. But with superheroes or with these fictional characters that we can aspire to in fantasy and science fiction, these characters who are they're meant to sort of be an epitome of virtue. So it gives you something very clear to strive towards, something that you'll never reach, something that even those characters often don't reach. And part of the beauty of the storytelling is when you see those characters that seem to be that epitome of virtue fall short of it. Yet there's the constant striving towards that ideal. And when you create a fictional character and they are virtuous beyond realism, that can seem, in one sense, delusional or kind of defeating to that sense of trying to improve your own character. But again, when you have that ideal and you keep going towards that ideal, whether or not you can ever reach it, you're going to become better in the process. There's something really nice. Joyce, you're thinking about practicing potato again, aren't you? Yep. That's never gonna die. It's never gonna die. I'm gonna stop going all these thoughtful expositions because you're just gonna think about potatoes. I know, and he's like, you get it.
This one was a potato.
Oh, God.
From all the words you say, that's the only word I could hear. Potato.
The only
Wow,
word
That
is
means
potato.
something like here.
Oh,
But I guess that was very inspiring. I guess so.
It's like I like the urgency in which you said it. Like you were like trying to convey to us a very important point, but all you could say was potato, potato, potato. It's too funny.
Right.
They talk about how IPs are always striving to know who they are or some sort of image that they're supposed to reach towards or discover more about themselves. So I think maybe superheroes is a way of striving towards an ideal version of who you could be, which is very aligned with IP-ness.
yeah. You said penis.
I did.
I see
Potato. But it's like a like an archetype
my
you can
turn.
always keep in your head. What? You say potato again? God. You gotta mute? Joyce, can you mute him?
Can you hear me? No?
Mute him? Because then we just have
I can't
you don't have
stop
him at all in the
in the
conversation.
beginning.
and then, hey,
If you can hear
it'll
me
work out
well
just
or
fine.
no. Oh my God.
It's funny because it's such an inefficient way of communicating. Like, if something's okay or
One thing
not.
that's really interesting here is that we have 4 INFPs, and you think, oh, they're the same. But then I'm clearly the dick of the group. So you can see that even with the shared name and type, there are still these differences between people. Fascinating. You're thinking of potato again, aren't you?
No, that was funny, Paul. I was laughing at you.
Oh, that's
and-
a first.
Paul M. and your love of insects. And so that's really cool. You really know like the SI specifics of all the insects that you love. I'd totally attend a voiceover documentary of insects and you commentating on them. That would be so cool.
Yeah, you'd be
Yeah.
really good at like doing narration for nature films with that kind of voice you have, like Benedict Cumberbatch, except you probably know how to pronounce penguins. You see that? Penguin, penguin, like he doesn't actually pronounce. Is it pronounced penguin?
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
That was
And then they would just be constant puns interjected within your nature documentary. It
Oh,
kind of
of
reminds me
course.
of, if you guys know, I think his name is Zay Frank. I don't know his type. He narrates animals, but he puts like a lot of puns and jokes in between them.
my
And that's
gosh.
how I imagine you to be, Paul M. Potato, are you there? Potato.
I'm here.
That's his word.
I'm here.
You can't use that
Okay.
word. That's his word. Whoa.
I don't know what to add, but
That word. That's his
because I couldn't hear Paul. Any Paul.
It's okay. It's your turn now, Paul. So would you like to tell us about your
Well, guys,
hobbies?
you know my hobbies. Superheroes too. Yeah, I'm a big fanboy of everything about superheroes since childhood. Because I guess Paul told about how they're inspiring. It's like a better version of people, of ourselves. We can see reflected on the idealism. I guess all INFP love idealism, and superheroes are the main thing about them is that. So yeah, that's it. And my hobby is always changing. I guess because of any, they're always changing.
Me?
I have my channel of YouTube. I made videos, but only in 2017. Yeah, because that was my mood. But I did a lot of web comics. I create my own superheroes. That's the
Ooh.
nerdiest thing I ever done.
Oh.
And I want to draw too. And I'm constantly changing hobbies and look up for I don't know something else. I always open-minded about hobbies. That's it.
I want to make a suggestion for a superhero comic. Is you give them like a superhero that I'm just thinking of, like with a really cool name, Nightshade, and it's a potato. Because potatoes are nightshade vegetables.
Oh.
Come on, get with the SI.
That is so funny. That is a really good joke.
A whole family of
You have to
superhero
say that.
potatoes, but
It's not true.
mashed potatoes, fries. These are
Yep.
whole family of
Yeah, exactly.
like Batman and Robin, Batgirl, but potatoes.
Serving justice,
I
high in
see
potassium.
Oh, that is so
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, half of
But-
superheroes I created are silly and very crazy stuff. Because once I had a job and I see a coworker there, and I look at them and say, "Oh, he could be a superhero. I'm gonna create a backstory for him. I give him powers and stuff because that was funny for me.
Did you say you had a job?
He doesn't know. He never will because it's silly, very silly. That's what I do. My weird hobby.
Did you say you had a job?
Yes, because I
And you're an
have plenty
INFP?
jobs.
Wow. You're an NF and you had a job? Oh. Wow.
I don't know how I.
Wow.
I have
How
to
did
eat.
that
I have to
happen?
pay internet.
Okay.
I have to pay internet. That's it.
I
And
thought NF
I'm not doing good,
set up the kindness of strangers.
as you can see.
John, wow, I
As you can see.
didn't know INFP could get a job. Wow. It's
Yeah.
impressive.
That's funny. And so
I
basically,
love working with strangers because
guys, you're interrupting me.
I love working with strangers because they can be characters for my new stuff.
That's brilliant. Make
There's
Joyce
a
into
lot
a
of
super.
source of ideas there.
Absolutely.
TikTok.
Yeah. And so like FI DOMs are always like striving to be their ideal self or striving to understand what that is, even if they don't know yet. So maybe superheroes is a good conduit for that. I also think being a guy gets you into superheroes more often than being a female too. I don't mean that to stereotype, but like most of my friends who like superheroes tend to be guys. But a female can totally love superheroes. But I think that's one of the factors affecting this as well. But it's cool. INFPs and superheroes. That's awesome.
I couldn't really relate to the exactly like superhero like, but in like
How dare
fairy
you.
tales. I'm sorry. But yeah, the same for like superheroes. I could for like fairy tales and like characters that are like super virtuous, but it's a bit different. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't really relate. Yeah.
Yeah. So INFPs ponder a lot about morality and moral implications. It can be expressed in many different ways. Awesome discussion so far, Pauls. And so I was wondering, how is your inner world like?
Paul, you take this
Okay.
one.
Yeah. Thank you, Paul. Yes. Yeah, my inner world is, well, I remember I was rewatching one of Michael Pierce's videos, and who I think is fantastic. Like, I
Yeah.
love the way he talks about type, and
No
like-
Joyce.
like
Joyce good.
it's exactly. Yeah, like it's like wonderfully nuanced and stuff. Anyway, but he was talking about the INFPs, and he talked about the INFPs inner world being like a cavern. Like, but it's like an intricate network of caverns. So it's like, and there's still like all these like little, channels and sub caves and whatnot to be explored. And I do relate to that a lot because, like I feel like a lot of me is like, yeah, hidden away, which I'm usually quite content with. Like I'm content to have it as my own. And I've been told before, you know, like, yeah, I'm a very private person and I don't share a lot of, you know, what's going on in my world. So, yeah, and there's like all these, yeah, I like to think of it like that. You know, there's like some like, you know, massive chambers, you know, with, you know, dripping with, you know, stalactites and stalagmites, and, you know, there could be like, you know, cave life, you know, swimming around in the, you know, the pools or the rivers, underground rivers, things like that. So they're fairly like lush, you know, areas. And then there's, you know, the little parts of me that are like, you know, really tucked away. It's like, oh, don't go down there because it's like kind of dangerous and it could cave in at any second. Things like that. It's a very literal metaphor, but yeah, I do relate to that a lot. And even though I've never gone spelunking, I am fascinated by the prospect of it. Even though I also have a bit of claustrophobia. So when I watch, you know, movies, you know, where characters go spelunking, like I don't know if you've ever seen The Descent. It's a British horror film about 6 women who go exploring in caves in the Appalachians, and, you know, and bad things happen. Spoiler alert, but
Wow, horror movie, that things happen?
yeah, I know, right? But they do a brilliant job of capturing the atmosphere of just a cave system, and even, yeah, playing into that fear of claustrophobia. Because, and sometimes even when I like delve into some of my areas, even though I don't really have a judgment about them, I can also sense that, like, you know, kind of like presence of weight hanging overhead. It's like, ooh, you know, this is kind of a tight, you know, spooky area. And anyway. Yeah, I just really resonated with that metaphor.
Yeah.
Brought up.
Like there's always more to navigate internally.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
There's so many cabinets. It's like a labyrinth.
Yeah, and it's like a labyrinth in the sense that I won't necessarily get lost. I can always find my way back. No one else could. You know, because yeah, you can like hang around the entrance, yeah, you know, where like all the tour guides take you and stuff.
Right. Go to the shop.
Exactly. But and I love that potential. It's just sort of like you were talking about, you know, superheroes like aspiring to be, you know, better, you know, be a better hero and or a better person even, and you won't necessarily ever reach that goal, but the goal is never the point. Yeah, the point is like constantly reaching for it. Just like a lot of. And I'm not likening myself to an artist at all, but like you hear about a lot of artists like always striving for that perfect, you know, composition or the perfect painting and things, and they'll never get it. But yeah, they're not. Yeah, it doesn't matter because they're just constantly pushing themselves. So it's like that with my internal world.
Wow.
Yeah, it's like not about a goal or a destination, but it's about like the journey or the striving towards something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And so, Paul?
Oh, you said Paul. Sorry, I got confused. Why are you guys laughing? I'm generally getting confused. You're making fun of me or something. I would describe it like, gosh, like a web. I would describe it like a web. Maybe I'm just seeing my NE a lot, but I'm seeing a web. I'm seeing a constellation of things connected. I mean, I think where the FI comes in is what those threads are, what those connections are between, and it's necessarily related to life, and to concepts that influence life. When someone asks me a question, I notice that I just sort of see kind of disparate pockets of information, like pockets of ideas connecting together. When it should be an easy question to articulate, right? What's the inner architecture of your psyche? But that's what I see. It kind of has a flow to it. As a flow, and it's like invisible threads, constantly connecting. But it's connecting intentionally. It's connecting with a purpose. It's not just connecting to enjoy connections, which I think might be more characteristic of an NE dom, right? Connections, because connections are fun. For me, the connections are always, that's like all ENFPs, right? I'm just kidding. Sorry, Shannon, my ENFP friend. But there is, like, it's necessarily about emotional and personal concepts, connecting thoughts about human existence, connecting emotions, and seeing the relationships between them. Yeah, it's always finding relationships that have to do with personhood, essentially. Did that explain anything? Or did that just kind of go around? Oh, okay. You guys are all just being really nice, right? I don't believe Joyce, because she says LOL or lol. But I'll trust the other Pauls. Thank you. Why are you guys so quiet? Yeah, mic is dropped. Thank you. I will be here all panel.
Mm-hmm. So it seems like, you know, the similarities in Paul M and Paul Potato's stories is that there's a complexity, like there's many caverns, or there's many web what do you call it, web connections?
Yeah,
So
sure.
there's a plethora of areas to explore, or a plethora of that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, like there's intricacy that it's almost like you're simultaneously building and discovering. And I think it's not just connections, but maybe more truths about the self, and not just yourself, but kind of the self as an entity, itself as a concept. So where that FI is always mapping out that personal emotional experience, doesn't have to stop there. Like if someone has FI at the top and they don't choose to really grow with it, then it will stay stuck at, oh, this is me, this is what I like, this is what I value, and this is me, and it's special because it's me, and I'm special because I'm me, and I'm the best because I'm me, and I'm important because I'm me, and the self-focus. But by engaging in that process of mapping and that which exists in the self, either the more solid mental structures like those gays, or the more fleeting mental structures like the webs. It's connecting to find truths about the self, so you can extrapolate that to others' selves. Why? What do I know? I have thinking last, so.
Yeah, that seems completely accurate. FI is looking about, like you said, Paul, truth about the self, and it uses that understanding to like extrapolate about the world. So it tells you something about the world. Yeah.
It's like its origin is in oneself, but it's not all it's aimed at or all it's looking at, right? It starts in the self, but it extends far beyond that. Like the process is introverted, so it occurs internally. Yeah, and then it's taken outward, and it can be real benefit to people, right? You know, you read a story, you read a poem, you hear a song, you think, I feel that. That's what I feel. Oh my gosh, do you know how I feel? Could be an FI dom that made it, right? Mapping out that emotional.
That's how I feel, Paul.
Right? Potato, I get you, man.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, man. Are you going to elaborate or just say exactly? You can agree with me because no one likes an ass kisser.
That's all I can say, because I couldn't hear a lot. No, continue, please.
No, actually, I'm done.
Really?
Well, for now, and then Ennie's going to kick in and I'm going to say more stuff.
Okay. Any
So,
thoughts?
Paul,
Anyone?
would you like to add your experience of your inner world?
My inner world. Okay. Since childhood, I always had a rich inner world, but I didn't need the need to share it. Just now, when I grew up, um, and yeah, I have a lot of silly stories about me trying to find myself in the world, my place, and my identity. And I guess a lot of FI DOMs can relate to that.
Yeah.
We're trying to know who we are, and that's very important for us. I thought it was important for everyone, but since I learned about MBTI, I guess it's just us. Am I wrong?
I mean, yeah, it's like the IPs. Those are the ones who they're so concerned with finding some sort of identity.
I see that.
Oh, I don't need the description of what you're doing behind the camera, man. That's disgusting. But I mean, the IP types, they're gonna have that focus on identity, whether it's the TI or the FI. TI is not often associated with identity the same way FI is, because FI is like a kind of identity through values, and the meaning that one has, the meaning that one puts on their life. But any IP, that's primarily what they're going to look for. That's what where they're gonna start, is that exploration of the self, exploration of identity. Compared to an EJ who discovers the self more through their relationships with other people, and their identity kind of takes a bit of a backseat, right? And then you have the IJs and the EPs, so like identity, who cares? You know, let's talk about concepts and facts. Yeah, so it definitely is like an IP thing, but the IFPs and the INFPs, the INFPs I think make it a little more fantastical. There's a little more mysticism in the discovering of the self.
Good point, Paul Tato. Yeah, and so
I'm gonna steal
Paul,
your name.
your inner world.
I see a relation between Paul and INFP Pauls and having bad internet. I'm gonna study them.
Yep, that's a thing. Because who wants to take time to figure out that ST crap, right? Why focus on actually making sure that things work for you in the real world when you can just instead think about things that don't actually matter, that aren't actually relevant?
The types that have had the most technical difficulties have been the INFPs and the ENFPs.
Really? That's a pattern.
It's a really big pattern, actually.
I knew it. I knew it.
Wow. You gotta write a book about that.
Heidi's INFP book.
Yeah. Talk about internet problems for like half the book. And how it represents the working of the function stack.
I love it. And so, Paul P, would you like to tell us a bit about your inner world?
Yeah, for sure. My inner world is a bit like a secret garden, and that you like traverse like in your mind, and it's like really like fantastical and a bit, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's beautiful. Damn.
Like
ours suck compared to that.
Yeah.
Ours doesn't have flowers.
Like, yeah, there's flowers, and like you can eat them, and like you can make like a wish or like something like superpowers or things like that. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if I want to be like more brave beautiful. Or something like that, I go in my inner world and I tell myself like, oh, I need like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You got a mushroom.
Yeah.
Gorgeous.
Mushroom garden. Yeah. You captivated all the other Pauls when you started talking about superpowers. You're like, yeah, a garden.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Mine was a web. Like, webs suck. Like, we clean webs out, but a garden? Ugh. And caves are like cold and damp and dark, but Garden? Oh man. Can I change my answer, please? In retrospect?
Mm.
No. Okay.
All right. Nah, you have to live with it like the rest of your
Okay.
life.
Thank you.
Like your
Thank you.
internet connection.
Whoa, that's a sore spot, man. How dare you?
So, when do you Pauls feel most at peace?
I unmuted myself. There we go. Okay.
You unmuted yourself.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, there we go. There's that like tech savvy we were talking about before.
Yes.
When do I feel most at peace? I think there's multiple occasions. This is such a boring answer because I think it's true for a lot of people, not just INFPs, but definitely being out in nature. Like I'm a fairly avid hiker. I'm not like, constant outdoorsy, that kind of guy. But I tend to go for a hike, at least, once a week or every 2 weeks. And like I live in Vancouver, which, we're lucky enough to be surrounded by like forests and mountains.
Yeah.
And
So if you didn't use it, that'd be a shame.
yeah, exactly. Luckily, one of my friends, he's more my wife's friend, but I met him through her, is an ISTP, and as long as you don't say anything stupid, ISTPs are fantastic hiking companions because they love to find the places that are like out. They're not going to take like the popular ones. Like there's like Vancouver is notorious for a trail called the Grouse Grind, where you go up Grouse Mountain, but it's like extremely popular. You get like random tourists taking it all the time, and so anyway, it's just packed. Whereas like he likes to find the ones that are out in the middle of nowhere. You might run into a few people, but and like he knows where he's going. So anyway, that was a bit of a segue, but basically because and in a way it actually helps to have him because I have no problem like being in nature by myself, but because I know that he knows what he's doing, I can just kind of like tune out and like I'll be mindful of my surroundings, like I'll watch my footing, stuff like that, but I don't need to worry about where are we going, like how long do we need to be out here, and when do we need to turn back, because he's already taken care of that. So
I mean, ISTPs, they have a natural like relationship with the Earth's magnetic pole. So you ever get lost, you have an ISTP with you, you'll know where to go. That's fact.
Yeah, exactly. And if things get too dire, they're gonna kill you and eat you. So
yeah, exactly.
Either in a way, it's giving back. It's it's like circle of life, all that stuff.
What an INFP thing to do. You got to pick someone to eat me first.
Oh yeah,
right?
Please.
I'll sacrifice myself.
Yes. Yeah, but can you wear a robe or something? Let's get like really ritualistic with the thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so that is an example, but I'd say one of the other ones is, even though I don't do it often, is performance. And which is weird because even while I'm performing, like there's all that constant anxiety, and like I'll talk specifically about doing stand-up comedy, for example.
Yeah.
Which I don't do so much these days. It's a little tricky, but even though like while I'm performing, I am terrified, because you're like freaking out, and like sometimes like deafening silence is worse than a boo. But at the same time, because I'll use that as a venue to, like vent about, things I'm worried about, things I'm angry about, which is a huge deal for an Enneagram 9, by the way. For example, or even just things I think I'm weird, and like these are like the weird parts of myself, or here are some of the dark thoughts, everyone, that you get to digest and see what you think. But in a way, because I'm sharing with myself, and because I've constructed in my act like a way for me to share myself in a way that feels comfortable to me, and something that I personally find funny. There's definitely a piece. It's more of a piece brought on by authenticity, I think, because there may be some exaggeration, but pretty much everything I'm telling you is basically the way I think and feel. Yeah. So those two examples.
Wow. Hiking and stand-up comedy. Great combination.
Yeah, that was really great. Yeah. So talking about stand-up comedy, what are some like Paul puns y'all have for each other?
I don't know. I'm just gonna like see them on command. Like I'm a pet. Like I'm kind of appalled that you even asked that. Like you really should apologize right now. I mean, I don't want to. I mean, one, like I do want to be genuine. I don't want to be an impulster because that would be like that would just kind of go against the INF paradigm. Did that work? Oh, yeah. No, I really I'm gonna pass the Paul over to Paul right now. See what he's got. Can't believe you made me do that, Joyce. Like, I'm a little embarrassed. See, when you guys are muted and you're laughing, it's terrible. Okay, Paul P doesn't count because it doesn't make any noise anyways. But to you, like, see, you're not even muted. You're not making any noise. What the heck is this? You guys are just like silently laughing. Like that's the most painful kind of laugh, or the best kind of laugh. I don't know which one.
Yeah, well, I too apologize if we made you feel uncomfortable, but that's the thing with political humor is, you know, it's a bit edgy and stuff, and but it's fine because personally, like I like edgy stuff. Like I see a Paul girl on the side, you know, she's a part-time Paul dancer, and yeah, it gets pretty kinky. Like she's into CPT, cock and Paul torture. Yeah, there aren't any kids watching this, are there?
Oh,
Yeah,
probably not now.
yeah, probably not. Yeah, it's like, oh look, it looks like I've been canceled. Okay.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll toss those out there, and yeah, like I did think, you know, when we first brought this up, because, and I know I mentioned this in our messenger group, but the idea of like this group, you know, being called like "Welcome to the Paul House" or
Oh my gosh.
strictly Paul Room, you know, and that's only because of the nerdy as hell movie references, but yeah.
Lord of the Peas,
Anyway.
One Ring to
Yeah.
Rule Them All.
Yeah, absolutely.
Man,
Uh,
I gotta pee. Can I pee?
Sure. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
No, we're not.
INF prompt return.
yeah, I got a lot of NE today. Oh, Joyce, you're an angel. This is fun. You literally, just so you know, like I know we've already been good friends for a while, but the fact that you could ask me to make puns like that on the spot, which is not the first time you've asked me to do that, that confirms that I'm your bitch. I am your bitch.
Mhm.
Do it like yeah. Do whatever you want to me, but no sexual stuff. That's gross.
INF problematic.
Problematic. Oh, weird.
Nice.
Weird. Oh my gosh. I gotta admit, I actually really like Paul P's because he was beside Paul number 4, and he went Paul P number 3, and there's only one Paul P. I adore that. That's awesome. Please tell me that was on purpose. You know, I gave that one to you, man. Just say it's on purpose, because then you look like a comedic genius. I need to think of another one. INF.
Cool, y'all. So,
Cool. All right.
all right. So, awesome, possum, blossom. Great. And so my next question for you, Pauls, is what set you apart as a child? What made you a little different?
Honestly, I was gonna say my name, but this This video kind of a letdown.
Yeah,
sorry,
yeah.
Paul.
Well, I definitely have a thing about names, like as a childhood, but I'll go into that. Well, it's weird because it ties into my whole insect thing before, like as a kid. And granted, like a lot of kids are into insects, but like I was like the kid who was into insects. But just for some diversity, I was also the kid who was like really into dinosaurs. And again, like really into like, you've got kids like dinosaurs, but then I was also the kid who likes dinosaurs, so I'd like go around the playground, pretending to be a T-Rex and stuff like that. And
I still do that. I'm 27.
Of course, it's perfectly normal behavior.
Hey man, what's up? Hey mom, good to see you. Just every day.
So there's definitely that. But one thing I did notice is, as a kid, like I was never really like made fun of for it. Like, which I think was great. Like in many ways, like I was a pretty like happy, well-adjusted kid. Just because I never really dealt with like there was like the odd bully, but it was always like weird isolated incidents and stuff like that. And it was never really about that. It was more like my hair, so that's fine. Which had nothing to do with me. I used to have I normally have really curly hair.
Oh, that's so cool.
No, it really wasn't. I hated my hair as a kid. But anyway, that's beside the point. But so it definitely set me apart as a kid. But I also like that it seemed to be, if not celebrated, then certainly at least appreciated. Like, I was never teased about it or anything like that. And people are like, oh, hey, you know a lot about this. Can you tell us about this? Or can you like read this book about insects? And like I remember one time in 3rd grade, I was in the washroom. I remember this very distinctly. I was washing my hands and with my friend Wade. And then this other kid, Richie, comes in, and he says, Paul, you're needed in the library. We need you to draw a Tyrannosaurus, And I'm like, in 3rd grade, I was like, okay. I'm like, a little freaking out because like I feel really put on the spot. And like I go into there and there's like this whole crowd of kids and the librarian, and this is so weird, the chalkboard's already, and I'm up against a 7th grader. And when you're in the 3rd grade and there's a 7th grader, so like there's only a few years difference, but they're like gods.
Oh yeah.
And that was our school. It ran from kindergarten to grade 7 there. So these are like the echelon people. And that was the thing. It's like, okay. And like I'm just like thrown into this competition. Clearly the 7th grader probably had some time to prepare because they're all ready to go. And we went for it. And I drew a T-Rex, and like I thought, well, it's fine. It's not my best work, and granted, I'm fully aware that this could have been a pity prize, but I won. And it was Easter, so I got like this giant ass chocolate Easter bunny, and I was like,
nice.
Oh my god, yes! I never win anything. So anyway, it just.
Did you dinosaur? And they gave you a bunny. I feel like there was a missed opportunity there.
I know, like
You could have drawn a bunny, or they could have given you a chocolate dinosaur.
It's weird. Like, I'm glad they didn't ask me to draw a bunny because that would have been messed up. That would have been terrible. They'd be like, oh, there's something wrong with that rabbit.
It looks like a dinosaur.
Anyway. So sorry, I've been babbling on here, but it set me apart as a kid. That kind of stuff.
Yeah, your just thorough knowledge of dinosaurs and bugs is really amazing. Yeah. Wikipedia got nothing on you. Your knowledge in those areas is like rivalries.
Yeah,
like
I'm better than Wikipedia.
But
no one
like,
disputes my
more
sources.
condensed and funny. Yeah.
Any other Pauls?
I mean, having an identical twin doesn't count as a quirk, I don't think. Does it? It could. We'll find out because I just said it. Oh no. I had weird quirks when I was like 4 and 5. I was such a perfectionist about material things. My parents never let this down. They still literally bring up to this day, like every couple of weeks, just as a joke. I went through a phase where I refused to wear anything that wasn't a plain white t-shirt. I would literally be like in bed without a shirt, and I would not come out until they got me a plain white shirt. I mean, often they didn't. I just stayed in bed. But I mean, because why do that? I wouldn't wear. I don't remember this. Apparently, I wouldn't wear any socks with like little nicks in them. Like if the fabric was a little off, it was basically like juvenile OCD. It was so strange. Like I wanted things to be so perfect. I had this obsession with perfectionism, and that could be FI, could be the type 1 Enneagram, which is weird as an INFP, who asked me like, "Oh, INFP, on a scale of 1 to 10, how 9-wing 1 are you?" Not. That's how. No, I'm too angry for that. But yeah, that was a weird quirk. Like physically, I would be very perfectionistic. I wouldn't like clothes around my neck at all. Like I would need loose necks because it felt like it would choke me, even if it's just like this. As you see, I have grown from that quirk. See how it's right along my neck. I was waiting for applause, and it didn't come. That's okay. Don't pander to me. What are you doing? Come on, Paul M. That was way too late. No, no. So that's definitely yeah. Those are some of the quirks. Like it was kind of in that SI realm of perfectionism, right? Of wanting the physical things to be perfect. I didn't want to have to worry about any kind of sensory chaos. That's something that made me a weird ass kid. Among the many other things that made me a weird ass kid, but that's that was one of them.
Yeah, Spacey told me before that he doesn't like the certain texture of certain mashed potatoes, and he considers that a SI thing. It's like wanting sensory perfection and just like being a little picky, very picky about it.
I like Spacey. He's like, it's like me if I was cool and smart, you know? Yeah, I can relate to that a lot. Not the cool and smart, but the perfectionism, for sure.
Cool.
Oh my god, I might legit be into space. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, Spacey is dating an INFP.
Obviously, it won't work. Okay, obviously it won't work because I'm straight. But also, even so, he would never go for me. I'm not that. Like, whatever. I'm just gonna be sad now. I'll just settle for his friend Christian. That's okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Christian sees this. He knows that we have something special. It makes sense. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. And so, Paul
3. Oh, okay, yeah. So what was the question again? I forgot. Sorry.
The question was, what made you a weird kid, or like what set you apart as a kid?
Hashtag any problems. Forgot the question. Yeah, you did.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, in class, I would like ask like my friends if I could like read their hands and like predict their future, like things like that. And I would just like bullshit all the way through, but like they believed me. I don't know. So I guess like I made things up. Like I don't know how to explain it. Yeah.
But have you ever found out you were right? That's what I'm curious about.
I have found out. Yeah. I had like a imaginary friend that I could like talk to. It was like a dice, and like if the number was like 2, 4, or 6, like it meant yes, and like things like that. So yeah, it went really like deep. Like I don't know.
Wow. What if it landed on 3, 5?
3. Like I would ask it like, am I going to die tomorrow? And it would say no, and I was so glad because I believe like things like that. So
if it landed on 1, 3, or 5,
I would ask again if like, are you sure, or things like that. And yeah,
Well, then you're literally cheating death.
I'm sorry.
That's so cool. Like literally cheating death. Yeah.
I think that's really cool. Yeah, I mean, I dabbled in that a bit when I was older, but yeah, it never occurred to me as a kid. Yeah, so you're reading hands. So I guess it's true. You were into Paul mystery.
Oh, ouch! That one
It
hurt.
was right there.
I can't believe you didn't think that was. Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had to.
I respect
But
you.
that's really neat. I like that. And I like that. Yeah, you just like would make things up. That's so cool. Yeah, just for the hell of it.
So good.
It's beautiful.
Like, I wonder if like you could go up, like when you're a kid, you could go to a kid that was mean to you and just say, "I can read your palm if you want." Like,
Yes.
okay, sure. You're like, "Oh my god, you're gonna die tomorrow," and just like totally scare them,
Mhm.
and then it would
Yes.
take them down several notches. That would have been such a good playground. I'm gonna go use that at the playground near my house, because, I mean, honestly, I like whenever I walk around the neighborhood, these little 7-year-olds are always giving me lip. Like, no, like come on, let's take them down a notch. That was a bad joke. That was fucked up.
Well, you can always read my palm if you want. If whoever is a palm reader that's watching this channel,
Wow.
please tell me what my.
It says you're lacking iron.
I think it's from the left hand and not the right. But
Oh, dang.
yeah, just to be sure.
Okay.
Now, what
okay,
actually suggests a higher hemoglobin count? It's good.
Okay, guys. I'm hoping someone in the audience knows. Or Paul P, if you ever want to read, just come at me. Yeah, that's amazing, fantastic, all things wonderful. And so, Paul, do you have any questions for you other Pauls?
Well, I do have one, and this is a very mundane question. I'm sorry, but how do you feel about having the name Paul?
I feel like it's a stepdad name.
Hmm.
Like, it's not a cool name. It sounds like, I don't know, it sounds like, you know, the loser who married your mom and has a mustache and just wants to like be loved by you, you know? I feel like you'd say like, "Oh, don't worry guys, that's just my stepdad Paul. He's a loser. Let's go smoke weed in the back." And I just, yeah. Paul just seems like, I don't know, but I can't really change it. It's also interesting because Paul means small,
Uh-huh.
yeah, right, or humble, and you don't want to go around saying, "Oh yeah, my name means small," right? But
No.
I think no,
not as a male, no.
definitely
Not as a teenager. Yeah.
no, for sure. But it is. What's up?
It doesn't feel expansive, like when you say Paul.
Mm.
Like, it brings you like, I don't know.
Right, because no one can give you a short form nickname.
Nope.
It's like, hey, you know, that's where it ends.
Huh. Yeah, they can give you a long form nickname, and that's just a whole mess.
Yeah, my dad, he's a psychotherapist now, but he used to work as a pastor for like 20, 25 years, and people would always ask, "Oh, is your name Paul because your dad was a pastor?" No, it was actually named after my great uncle, but everyone assumes it's the Apostle Paul from the Bible, and they're like, "Oh, that's so cool." I'm like, "Yeah, you know, I don't know how I feel about that, Paul. Jesus is a cool dude, but that Paul, I don't know. I question things." So it always creates an interesting religious conversation too. Do you think there is a statistical trend? Do you think that that Pauls are, I mean, not, of course, not every INFP is going to be Paul because there are more names than there are types, but do you think that there would be a high probability of Pauls that are INFPs?
Let me chime in a bit on this. So I have a friend called Tina. She's an ENFJ. She knows about Paul B, so fine AF.
Yeah.
And she sent me.
You Did you give me a compliment? I mean, honestly, I was kind of fishing for one, but I appreciate that you bit. So thank you.
Yeah, and she sent me a screenshot of the meetups.com in Toronto, and there's a meetup started by INFP Paul, and she's like, "Is this your friend Paul B in Toronto?" And I'm like, and then I sent it to you, and you're like, "That's not me."
No, I would never go out and socialize on purpose. No, that was weird.
That's so weird. Why are there so many INF Pauls?
Yeah.
I bet his internet sucked too. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's a weird connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think like Paul, we're both vegans, I think. So that's
Yeah.
yeah.
Cool. I mean, I feel like given that it's an ethic of nonviolence and peace, to respond with "yeah" is a bit not really fitting. But wow, I didn't know you were lame too. That's awesome. Yes.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be a thing. I think as Paul is a name of like being docile, and like if Pauls are already lame, it's like, okay, add vegan onto the list. You know, just keep going down that train. You know, works out. Oh, that's really cool.
It's fascinating. My INFP friend who got me really into the Myers-Briggs, he was a vegan too, and
I'm so
so
sorry.
yeah. I think there's
These weird animal rights type people. What a drag.
there's a slight trend towards FI and veganism. I'm not like anyone can do anything. Traits are not indicative of functions. But
Anyone can be vegan if they try.
Yeah. I just noticed that there's a slight trend there.
And then it's funny. I said that on one of the first panel I did with Joyce. It's like not all INFPs are vegans, but probably most vegans are INFP. And then I got a bunch of INFPs and like, oh, I'm not a vegan. Like that's not the direction of causality. That's not the math. Like it's oh man, it's fun. That's how you know an INFP. It's like, oh yeah, here's my identity. You're welcome, world. Take it, because you love it. Because I love it.
Yeah. And then I had a bunch of FI DOMs messaging me. Like, I heard Paul say that he's vegan. I'm actually vegan too. So
yeah,
there's that too. Yeah.
And you told me that in your typing service, when you get someone that mentions their veganism in like the questionnaire, which guys, by the way, if you're gonna want to get typed by Joyce. She's freaking brilliant. That's actually I found my type. I thought it was INFJ for 10 years. We all have our INFJ phase, right? But she said that when someone fills out the questionnaire and mention their veganism, they're pretty likely INFP. And then she finds that's like, isn't that what you said? That there's a pretty strong relationship?
I said it as
FI.
I said it non-seriously, but there's also some truth to it. Yeah.
That's kind of true.
That wasn't the only reason why I typed to my INFP, okay, guys? That wasn't the reason why.
No, but
it's the NE. Look at the Paul. Like Paul has so much NE. Like the ability to joke rapidly, the ability to switch topics, the ability to mental flexibility. It's like he has a speed of ideational thought, and it's so rapid.
It's freaking exhausting. But yeah, that's how you know I'm INFP. Is I'm crazy, but not as much as I am moral tight ass, and that's where you get INFP. That's the formula. Do you want to get typed by Joyce? Yeah, she's honestly she's terrific. Her questionnaire survey is the best you will find. So give her your money. I did. I don't regret it. And after a few months, she stopped asking for more. I did have to sign up for her mailing list at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So yeah, if you want, get typed by me. It helps me pay the bills. It's nice during this pandemic when it's hard to make cash. So if you want to support your friendly neighborhood creator, that's an option too. Yeah. If you want to help pay for my next meal, you go ahead.
It sounds like you're starving. No, guys, buy typing sessions with her now, or else you see her emaciate.
All right. Any other questions for?
It's so dark. It's just going down. It's like NE makes all these connections, but the longer it goes, it just goes downhill with those connections. It's just going to end up in a fiery disaster.
Yeah, it gets more and more absurd as it goes on.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's amazing. All right, so I have room for uno question. Oh, his internet died. I wasn't expecting that. Okay, that was a joke. And and so my question is, what's one misconception people have of INFPs? One way they're mischaracterized.
That we're all vegans?
Welcome back.
Hey.
Potato.
Sure. With no audio or
Hey.
video. What's the
I think we're
password?
better now.
What's the password?
Potato.
Thank you.
Good.
Hey, Jesus.
We need to make sure it was you.
It's me. It's me.
Anyone
Don't
could
worry.
have picked up your phone. Yeah.
I think so. Tying on, see, this is where any isn't always just chaotic, because it does connect eventually. Talking about the typing service, I studied typology really in depth. Like, read every original text on typology. Not a brag, not quite. But I read all these books. I studied so much of it, and I was still very convinced that I was an INFJ. Even understanding the functions, that's kind of what I had in my head. And I never really thought of myself as an INFP. When Joyce typed me that way, Joyce and her colleague Dan, I wasn't repelled, I wasn't hesitant to accept it, but I was just surprised. Because I thought, I'm FI dominant, but I'm not a selfish piece of garbage. And because really I associated FI for so long with selfishness, with putting one's own needs and wants and feelings first before everyone else. The focus on the self, because FI is always concerned with the self. FI is always self-referencing, and so I did not relate to the type for a long time, and only through kind of further discussions with Joyce, and with her colleague Dan as well, and my own kind of research, I started to understand that the introverted function means it's within the self. It's within that, like it's directed towards the self, to that intrapsychic world, to that mental world that exists beyond the confines of the moment, that exists beyond the immediate time and space. So FI is not a selfish function. It's not a selfless function either. It's amoral or non-moral, but it is instead a deep emotional process that occurs within the individual's mind. They'll figure out certain value considerations, qualitative judgments about the world, based on sentiment, based on emotion, without consulting the emotions of others around them. Understanding that was a real eye-opener. And that's when I felt much more comfortable with my type. I don't always reference the self, not always saying, oh, I understand why you're feeling. I went through the same thing. It's like, it doesn't matter. Their feelings are their own feelings. I don't need to belittle them with my own. But that emotional process still occurs idiosyncratically. It exists regardless of what others around me feel. Everyone else is happy about something, I could still be sad about something because I have my own reasons, because again, it's that internal process. So understanding what it means to be a feeler at its core, what it means to be an introvert at its core, helps you understand what FI is. It's that feeling function directed inside the mind. Rather than conflating it with all these associations we make with FI, we can look at it at the core. Yeah, that was a big misconception, and I kind of being able to get over that made me much more happy with the type that I have. And explained a lot. It was very illuminating. That was redundant. So was this, and I'm sorry. I apologize.
Yeah, there was a good point you made, Paul. You said to me before about what is a core characteristic of FI, and we talked about FI and how it builds on an emotional understanding in its own time. It takes it home as homework, and then it will finish processing it by itself as homework. I don't know. That's a weird explanation.
It's almost like I think when we talked about webs, we talked about caverns, we talked about these labyrinths, we talked about these sort of elaborate places. Now, an introverted function is going to be more constructive and less reactive. Extrovert function is going to be more reactive. So FE can notice someone's feeling right away and can respond to it in an appropriate way. It's like energy that they work with rather than energy they take in. And yeah, like the FI user is going to really deal with their emotional stuff on their own. You might notice this if you have an FI dom in your life, is they'll be a feeler, but they might not talk about their feelings. They might talk about the things that they perceive through their NE or their SE. They'll maybe talk about their TE a lot. Like, people often type me as a thinker because when I express, I talk about my thoughts. I give reasons for things. In part because I've kind of come under the belief, from some instances in my personal life where people don't really want to hear my emotions. And I think that's something we have to get over, and we understand that if we're to create close relationships, we have to be emotionally communicative, emotionally vulnerable. We have to share those deeper parts of us, even if it's scary. But the FI user is not going to really process their emotions with you. They're going to process them on their own, and they can bring them to you later. But they're going to have to go away and think about it, right? FI users tend to be quite comfortable with being responsible for their own emotional state. And so if an FI user does bring their emotions to you, it can often be with that TE lens of, I'm trying to figure something out that relates to my FI. Trying to get an idea. I'm trying to solve this problem. Can you help me solve this problem? Versus the FE user who would say, oh, I want to talk to you about my feelings because I don't know what they are, right? The FI user is going to know what they're feeling, but maybe not know what to do with it in a TE sense. So that's, I think, a common misconception too, is that INFPs are always going to talk about the feelings. They're often not. They feel very deeply, but its depth is internal, and it takes energy. It takes a lot of almost like calculation to figure out how to take that complex FI experience and bring it outward for another person to hear. I'm really bad with coming up with natural endpoints to discussions, but I believe this serves as one.
That's NE for you. Yeah. They're not sure what a natural endpoint is.
Right.
It never ends.
Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned, Paul, before, like FE kind of sees emotions to be interacted with outside itself, whereas FI internalizes the emotional experience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It-
And
it-
it can cause a weight with the FI user with emotions. Like if you notice in this hour and a half long session, I didn't really hear much about like the Paul's feelings.
Yeah.
You know, although they have FI and it's very deep, sometimes FI users don't share the depth of their feelings. Instead, they share their NE, their extroverted intuition, you know,
Yeah.
puns and quick-witted banter or other stuff, but they don't share that FI.
Mhm.
Unless they think it's a safe space. I tend to have to infer a bit to understand how an FI user is feeling with
Sorry,
someone.
Joyce. The amount of times Joyce is like, but you didn't actually tell me how you felt. I'm like, oh yeah, I got to learn to do that. And it's not because the FI doesn't feel. It's just it feels like it's for the self, right? The FI user has. I think they're more likely to have this mindset of, oh, they're my feelings. I'll deal with them. They're not your responsibility. It is, and there is a sort of weight there, but it's not a weight that is necessary, right? All right, the types that we have create these biases that we see through. It creates these stories that we tell ourselves that aren't actually true. And so when us FI users think our emotions are our responsibility, no one else can really understand our emotions. Sometimes it's really nice to find someone who wants to know those feelings. I'm lucky to have one of those people in my life. I don't want to name any Joyces, but that's really important. Oh, I love making an IJ smile. It's so interesting. Really, a friend who really wants to. I feel like this has turned into a PSA now. Talk about your feelings with an adult. But yeah, I mean, you might be the only one who understands them fully, but there are people that do want to be let in. And instead of as FI users telling ourselves that other people don't really care about our emotions because they don't care about it as much as we do, they still care a lot. And it can help to better understand those feelings when we get to externalize them, when we get to actualize them.
That was beautifully said. You're very articulate, Paul.
You just like that I complimented you.
That was a good cherry on the sundae. Yeah, I do admit. And I feel so bad for Prexor. He's just getting out at this point.
You know what? He's a badass. He's the star of the show. He didn't even need to say anything.
All right. Final thoughts, Paul?
Yeah. Final thoughts. I mean, I'll just kind of jump on, your final question, Joyce, about misconceptions and I'm not saying it's never true, but yeah, there's a stereotype of the INFP as being like this totally gentle, like airy-fairy little hippie type and stuff. And sure, there probably are. I'm sure. Yeah, but I think there's like a lot of INFPs, and this really does tie into FI. Like, there's a lot of darkness within the FI, and it's not the kind of like angsty darkness, because I know, we're often associated with being tormented artists and stuff like that. I may have alluded to this.
Oh my god, come on.
Stand-up comedy. Okay, and moving right along. Stand-up comedy, but there's like a lot of darkness and stuff, and it's not that I have judgments about my own darkness, because I've come to terms with it. It's like, oh, it makes you more complete. But tying into what Paul Bruce was saying is like, sometimes you'll find like that one person, or like maybe one or two or a handful of people, if you're really lucky, that really want to hear about the thoughts, things you may be processing and going over, and making it a safe space for you to actually share that part of yourself from time to time. Just doing stand-up comedy now, and I realize this is not a perspective everyone holds, and I'm totally fine with that, but like, I personally believe that anything can be joked about, and that's just my own thing. So And it's not like I'm going to go out of my way to shock people or offend people
Right.
necessarily. But I personally believe like making a joke about something is a way of dealing with it. It's not
Yeah.
a way of condoning what you're talking about, for example. Now, it doesn't always mean like, oh, I made a joke about like this thing that you were offended by, but
Right.
I made a joke, so it's therefore funny. Yeah, that's fine. You don't find it funny. That's
Yeah.
totally cool. You know, and like I'm never like whenever I tell jokes that are definitely on the dark side, and I tell a lot of dark jokes, I'm never sorry for what I said, but I am sorry if I hurt someone, because that's
Right.
not the intention. My intention is like to say something out there is like, oh, whoa, that was like edgy, but it's a way of like putting a play on it. So it's like this is this is like a really messed up thing going on in the world, for example. So here's a funny spin on it, so we can like just kind of take a little bit of that tension off just by laughing at it for a few seconds. And again, that's just one of my personal values. And I realize there's people who feel that you shouldn't joke about certain things, and that's fine. But I'd never want to control someone that way.
Yeah. Wondrous point, Paul M. How you said you have a humor about darker topics because it kind of sheds light on the absurdity of it, which is what Paul B always talks about too. And actually, you said the exact same sentence Paul B says to me. He says, like, I'm sorry if it hurt your feelings, or like, I'm sorry for the impact it had on you, but I'm not sorry for what I did, because there was nothing intrinsically wrong with it. And so that was the mind meld you both had at that moment.
Yeah, and it's never meant that. Yeah, and it's never meant like when I say like I'm sorry I hurt you. It's never that like fake apology phrasing of I'm sorry you were offended, because that's a whole different thing. Yeah, that's just a cop out. It's like I genuinely feel sorry that I hurt your feelings, for example, and because that is never my intention.
Yeah, like when comedy can get really dark. I mean, talking about really serious topics that are very sensitive. Yeah, it often seems like that's very taboo. Comedians should not talk about it. But when we're attempting to make jokes about dark stuff, it's like when you point out the absurdity of something, making fun of God. I mean, like, no, I guess I can't even say anything because I mean they'd be very horrible. But like different forms of discrimination, different forms of genocide, different forms of like crimes, like these real hot button issues. They are deservedly sensitive topics. I think Seth Macfarlane, undoubtedly an INFP, he is a really good example of this. He makes some really dark jokes in the show. Like there'll be a lot of jokes that are seemingly racist, sexist, definitely homophobic. Make a lot of these jokes. I think a lot of people miss the point. They think, oh, that comment was racist or sexist or homophobic, rather than looking a layer beyond that. Is that joke is to point out the absurdity of such an attitude that is being expressed. When Peter in Family Guy makes a sexist remark, Seth Macfarlane is not sexist. Seth Macfarlane is instead using the character of Peter to point out the absurd nature of sexism and the absurdity that someone would actually feel comfortable to say such a horrendous thing. Right? When you can illuminate the absurdity of some sort of behavior, some sort of action, some sort of event, you can take away its power a little bit. And you can approach it with a bit less fear. I think that's why, like, philosophy is like comedy but serious. Comedy is like philosophy but kinetic and entertaining. Because these comedians, they're just pointing out how strange the world actually is, how messed up the world actually is, and when we can see that, we can develop a certain comfort with the absurdity, such that we can approach it with a level head, be able to make meaning of that absurdity, and be able to take action against that absurdity if possible.
That was beautifully said. And that's also okay. So this is a good example of extroverted intuition too. So do you notice as like Paul's talking, he's like thinking through his statement, like you can tell, and then he's adding on to it when he figures out another connection, and he'll add on to it and add on to it. That's how you notice someone is extroverted intuition. Yeah. So I just wanted to point it out. So if anyone wants to see a visual cue. Yeah, and so any other comments on misunderstandings of INFPs before we end off?
Yeah, for sure. I think that there's like two kinds of doves: the doves that laugh and the doves that cry. And I think INFPs are more like the doves that laugh, like in according like to darkness or things like that. How Paul said it. I don't know. It was interesting.
Awesome. Y'all are great. I love you all, Pauls. Okay, so yeah, thank you so much for coming out, y'all, Pauls. I had so much fun punning with y'all, with talking about absurd humor and how it shines a light on the absurdity of life. There's a depth to the things that you learn. Whenever you guys comment on something, there's like just this moral and philosophical depth to the statements you make. Well, while they're hidden in puns and gifs and funny statements. Y'all sorry, I just called you.
Try one. Go for it. Come on, INFJ. Give us a pun. Have fun with it, okay? No pun's gonna make fun of you. No pun's gonna make fun of you.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that pun guy, but
yeah. Oh yeah.
Everyone else.
Yeah. The Paul that's all into pungi, right?
Yeah.
Likes to gather pungi in his garden.
Yeah.
Y'all are so punny.
Or are we just verbose and psychotic?
I love how dark you get.
Yeah, these bad jokes are polluting the atmosphere.
Oh! Snap! Good one.
Paul B was commending Paul M on one of his puns a few days ago, and like Paul M said, "At any second now," and then Paul B was like mind blown at the punception that any is the second function of INFPs, and it also means like any second, and it's like a double pun and punception. So that was impressive. Wordplay on point.
Thank you.
You should have. I mean, if only the viewers could see the group chat that we had leading up to the video. Like, it was just nonstop puns, terrible jokes, and like flat out like antagonizing each other about our jokes.
Yep.
It was beautiful.
It was a wondrous time. Oh, by the way, Paul P. So the reason why you weren't in it is because it was a Facebook thing and you didn't have Facebook. Yeah. So
wow, we make me feel left out. Jesus.
Yeah. Wow. Oh, you couldn't make it. Yeah.
No, I'm so sorry. I just wanted to let you know. I didn't want you to feel like maybe you were left out by mistake. So, yeah, love you. And yeah, heart. Yeah. And yeah.
My heart is palpitating right now.
Oh, palpitating.
Yeah.
Oh my.
Hey, God. If I die, you can all be pallbearers at my funeral.
Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
Oh man.
This is how Paul spawned over this one. But yeah, it was great to talk about superheroes with y'all.
It always is, because superheroes are life.
Yeah. And speaking about modern day superheroes, basically Paul B is your equivalent of your modern day Batman. So if you want, to embark on some fitness training or some life coaching with him, you can go check out his links. It'll be located down below. And yeah, Paul M, thanks for sharing about your love of bugs and dinosaurs. It's really interesting to learn about the little quirks that make you you. And thank you, Paul P, for your very modest but very wonderful presence You're really adorable in how cute and shy you are. yeah. I really think you're just like a really amazing and cute human being. And I'm sorry, Prexor, that we disconnected. I like how you're always at the live streams of most of my type talks. You have dedication. I'm sorry your Wi-Fi was not cooperating. Heart to you.
If he's gone, can we badmouth him right now? So Paul Prexor's internet gave out. Like he was the only one who had internet connectivity problems. Yeah. So we're better than him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think he could have tried harder. You know, he didn't give it Paul he got. So.
Oh, that would actually make me sick in my stomach.
Oh yeah.
Nice job. That was great. Wow.
Thank you.
Yeah. That was a mini applause. Mini applause.
Mini applause.
Applause. But yeah, thank you for the puns, the good time, the good cheer, and just having such an intricate life inside you. Those inner caverns, those webs, those secret gardens inside you. It's beautiful to learn about. So thank you for shedding light on your inner workings. And thank you, audience members, for watching. I'll see you all in the next episode.
I love you more.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Take care.
Bye.
Mathematically, a nigh impossibility. Four nerds named Paul claiming INFP, the worst kind of brag if it ever was one. They're like ENFPs, but only half as fun. Like the ISFPs, but not nearly as hot. Like the ESTJ, but flipped around, tied in troubling knots. Like the INFJs, except not even a bit. They think they're hilarious, but no one else gives a hit of a ball their way because they'll know they'll just drop it. Paul's dropping balls because they're trying to be eccentric, eclectic, seizing moments with grace so epileptic, refusing to bite their tongue because they'll call it oppressive. Instead, like inverted infants, they spit up dad jokes and bad puns, each awkwardly dragging out the next one. Cringiness multiplies 1, 2 to 4, abolishing every attempt at normal human rapport. Sorry, Joyce, but you know how blind FI can make us, covering ourselves with bad jokes like bad makeup. The name Paul means small, and right now it fits when I see Paul B as a little dick. And don't bug Paul M because he'll want to collect you, but let him get his reading glasses, he's a bit older than you. Two Pauls named Paul P can get you confused when one doesn't speak and the other only speaks in roots like potatoes. Shoot, truth be told, I kept thinking of Kansas Fields because every truth bomb we drop comes out super corny. And all the bull that I'm speaking makes me seem super horny, even though it's just my sloppy second NE. Making jokes at NE second is FINE by me, where to find SITE to C. We may be little twerps, strange like middle-aged men trying to twerk, and we may not have real jobs, but your jaws will drop when you watch us go to work.